So we're seeing Yuji fight in this chapter, and he's probably the strongest sorcerer to ever live at this point. He has insane blood manipulation, as we saw in the previous chapter. He can seemingly hit black flashes at will, which I know the narration says is impossible, but it doesn't really matter at this point. And he can also create dismantles that are like the size of buildings and wind up creating explosions that rival like an old school nuke. So yeah, that's the long and the short of it. Yuji is unbelievably freaking powerful, like for any battle manga series at this point. He's definitely surpassed Gojo and Sukuna, and he very likely could defeat Dborah, maybe even low to mid diff if he felt like it, but he doesn't, and we'll get into that. There's a lot to break down in this chapter. I just wanted to catch your attention immediately in this video because it's probably going to be a longer one. So coming off the previous chapter, like we talked about, Yuji does that insane blood manipulation stuff to stop the conflict between the Earth Sorcerers and the Rumelians, and he incapacitated most of them, to which we're also finding out that his blood does have poison in it, just the way that Choso and the other curse wounds did. Because after this sequence that we're about to talk about, he tells Mino that before long they'll just feel like they got a really bad case of the flu. Tell them they'll be fine if they rest up for a couple days. That's like the implication that, yeah, his blood does have poison the way that they do. But anyway, let's back up a little bit. Oatski, you know, the jerk Rumelian guy, he wasn't affected by this at all and busts out of the building and comes directly down on Yuji with like an axe. This is the first time we've seen this guy fight. And Yuji just grabs the blade. And Oatski points out that it's like not even touching him. Then he points out that Yuji is an earthling, but his aura is Kallian. So that makes sense because Yuji is somewhere between curse and human. He was created by Kenjaku to be a vessel for Sukuna Fingers and Sukuna himself. And now that he's also consumed all of his curse womb siblings, he's something. He's like Choso, the way that Choso was somewhere between cursed and human. So it's understandable that Oatski would sense him being a Kallian, since cursed spirits feel extremely similar to the Rumelians, the way that the Kallians do. And then Yuji's like, you look pretty tough. I'm sure you'll be fine. And he just hits him with a black flash. And like I said at the beginning of the video, seemingly at will. But of course he takes out Oatski with this. Doesn't kill him, of course, because he says it's not going to kill him. He's not trying to kill people here, even though he probably could vaporize Oatski if he really wanted to. But Oatski's KO'd and still pretty impressive. Like, Oatski's pretty powerful. Like, he might be like number 4 in the Sumerian rankings here. Then for good measure, Yuji just turns around and like hits Mino in the cheek with a little bit of like piercing blood. And this sequence is like tonally odd, but I guess it's Gege trying to get across that Yuji is like not allied with anyone. He's like his own cool anti-hero type of guy, which I guess that's what he's become over these years, because he has become a recluse and he's like emo now because all of his friends have died of old age, and he himself seemingly can't die of old age, or at least we don't know yet. He's still young. It's possible he just ages very slowly, and again, it goes back to probably because he was made as a vessel for Sukuna, so he was just, you know, super powerful inherently as a result of Kenjaku's experiments, and then also him eating the cursed wombs did something to his physiology, because, you know, Choso is also very old. Mino is angry at Yuji, not necessarily for shooting his cheek, but just saying like, why are you showing up now? You weren't here to fight, so Yuka had to fight. And emo Yuji's like, it doesn't matter. And Mino's like, what doesn't? He's like, I mean, who cares about Yuji Itadori anymore? They say old soldiers never die, they just fade away. Don't worry, I'll take care of the cursed spirits that leak out of Tokyo. And if Akotsu's grandkid loses, I'll clean that mess up too. But all I can do right now is make sure nobody interferes with those 2. Or those 4, I guess. This is for the best, isn't it, sensei? So let's unpack this. Yuji, through his jujitsu, can just sense and observe everything that's going on at once. But he's choosing not to intervene because he says, who cares about Yuji Itadori anymore? And considering what he also says about this is for the best, isn't it, sensei? This parallels to what Gojo told him at the end of the first series. Sometime in the month before Gojo had fought Sukuna, when they were like doing the swap training, Gojo tells Yuji, haven't you had enough of Satoru Gojo? And Yuji's like, what do you mean? He's like, I mean the future. future and how you deal with it, Yuji. Which is Gojo saying like he's trying to foster the new generation because he can't have everything always rely on him, because then things, I guess, would just stagnate, which I always had issues with when this was originally revealed, both within the narrative of the story and then the meta narrative behind it, which I do right now as well. It's like, yes, that is true. You can't just have everyone rely on you all the time, but at the same time, there's a line. And sometimes you could just step in and do things if needed, and it's not like the world's going to collapse because of it. It actually will cause the opposite effect. Yes, Gojo was trying to foster the new generation for sure. That was apparent throughout the entire series. I mean, ever since the beginning. But also, I feel like that was Gege trying to justify why Gojo died in the first place, because it did come out of left field, and it just makes you think, like, why would he even fight Sukuna at all? The way that things have changed over the last 60-something years in the Modulo timeline, there hasn't really been any issues or threats or anything. So the current generation hasn't really had to get stronger. And I guess Yuji's aware of that. But even then, now that something has shown up that is stronger than Sukuna, at least inherently, but Yuji is the strongest whether he likes it or not. And I guess it's alienated him because of that, and he doesn't want to be relied on, even though like his whole character arc in the original series was just helping as many people as he could and being someone that could be relied on. But I guess he's become too emo to care about that stuff anymore, or so much time has passed as to where he can't make new friends anymore, and all of his old friends that died is like, that's it, and he's just always going to dwell on that. But it goes back to what I was saying about meta narrative with, in the original series, Gege saying through Gojo, you know, haven't we had enough of Gojo, Satoru? And it's like, no, we didn't. The entire series was predicated on Gojo, and some of you may not like that, but it is the truth. Jujutsu Kaisen is a success because of Gojo. And when he was taken away by the prison realm for, you know, the second half of the series, it definitely didn't have as much attention on it. And then, of course, once he was released and he started fighting Sukuna, it's not a coincidence that that was the absolute peak in popularity of the manga. So it works for in our reality as well as it does in their reality. Both they need Gojo and we need Gojo, or we did. And the same thing is happening now. In the Modulo world, they need Yuji. And in our reality, the fandom, we need Yuji as well, because it is also not a coincidence that now that Yuji has shown up and he's aura farming and stuff, this series is reaching the peak of its popularity. Do you know what I'm saying? You can look into the deeper lore of this as much as you want, but the numbers don't lie. So what I'm trying to say is, no, we haven't had enough of Gojo. We haven't had enough of Yuji. Or as he says in the official translation here, who cares about Yuji anymore? Everyone. Literally every single reader of Modulo cares. And everybody in the world of Modulo cares as well, since they were looking for you to help them being taken over by freaking alien invasion. So that, you know, a 15-year-old girl with a brain tumor wouldn't have to sacrifice herself prematurely to summon Maharaga to fight against an alien god. But sure, if this fosters the next generation, then go for it. But I don't know how this is really fostering them. What, Tsurugi's gonna get stronger, I guess, because he is at the end of the chapter, although it always comes down to nepotism with him, but that's besides the point. Like I said in the spoiler video, which by the way, obviously I couldn't really get deep into this stuff. I just read the vague spoilers within 15 minutes and then essentially made a reaction to it as quick as I could. So I'm getting more of my thoughts out now, but maybe I should just enjoy the hype moments and aura in this series and not really focus on the other stuff, because, you know, who cares? Now I'm starting to sound like Yuji. Anyway, we're coming to Dborah taking on Maharaga again. And we saw in the previous chapter that Dborah figured out how reverse curse technique works, or more so how positive cursed energy works. And he explains it in this chapter as multiplying cursed energy within itself, which is just negative energy. This is how Gojo explains it in the original series as well, so nothing has really changed. And then he figures out, hey, you know, what if instead of using that as a positive current to heal myself, what if I channel that positive cursed energy into my curse technique? And he does that, and he creates curse technique reversal. Like his killing intent manifestation light beam thing has now become a darkness ball thing, the power of darkness, whatever. It's not being directly labeled in this chapter, but I guess it eventually will. But he's like, okay, I have a new technique here. So this time I'll definitely have to defeat Maharaga in one hit before he can adapt. But how do I do it? So within the next two chapters, he's going to defeat Maharaga. He's more so probably just going to hit him with one big massive like dark blast or I don't know, whatever this power can do. Because that's how Mahoraga was defeated the 2 other times. Sukuna just hit him with one big Fuga, and then Gojo just hit him with a hollow purple. So if Dborah does defeat Mahoraga, then I'm curious as to what's going to really happen at that point, because then I guess Yuka will come out of the shadows, which technically she's been holding her breath this whole time, which I don't know if Gege decided to retcon that or not, since there's no oxygen in the shadows or whatever, as per what Reggie said. But or she just died while she was down there, you know, from the brain tumor or whatever, and then she becomes like a vengeful cursed spirit or whatever instantly, and then fights Dborah that way, which would be really sad, but you know, it is what it is. I mean, it seems like she's bound to die regardless. So even if she comes out and she's still alive, there's not really much she could do. Even before Dborah evolved in his fight against Mahoraga, she still would have been instantly vaporized by him. So either she just randomly becomes as strong as she needs to, you know, the random Shonen MC end of series power up, and she just defeats him with 10 shadows that way, or does something else. Or Dborah like heals her with reverse curse technique, because I'm sure he's just gotten to the point of where he can just do it to other people. Like I'm sure he's going to wind up doing it to Cross eventually if he doesn't die before that. And then he like heals her brain tumor with his savage reverse curse technique, maybe, and then if she is healed, then she becomes strong enough to defeat him, or he just concedes or something, or he's just like, you know what, let's call the duel off. I'm happy with what happened against Mahoraga. It pushed me to become a new person, so now we could just live in peace now, or something like that. I don't know. Either way, I just don't have the prescience to see how Yuka can win here, but I'm sure once this all resolves, everyone will be like, well, it was obvious that was going to happen, you know, as you usually do. But Yuji did say that he was going to clean up the mess or whatever if Yuka fails, more so if Mahoraga fails. And considering what he also said about echoing Gojo's sentiments, you know, what we talked about for like 15 minutes, I guess he's not going to fight Dborah. Or if he does fight Dborah, then he'll die the way that Gojo did. I mean, because why not have another moment for shock factor? I honestly don't know what's going to happen, which is good. I don't want to know what's going to happen. But I'm also not optimistic about Yuji fighting Dborah because, you know, what we've been talking about these last couple weeks. The MCs have to win. Yuji is not the MC. He is the old blood, and what he's been saying in this chapter really reinforces that he doesn't want everyone to rely on him. He doesn't want to have to be the Deus Ex Machina engine of this series. So I don't know what's going to happen here other than some kind of talk no jutsu or some kind of random butt pull end of series. The MCs become strong enough as they have to win. So then we're coming back to Sugi taking on Maru here, and Sugi of course has Rika's helmet thing on that is giving him cursed energy on top of his heavenly restriction, and Maru is going full blast here finally. He's actually manipulating water, or looks like water, and then turning it into ice. He's finally doing that. We saw him do that against Takeda back when we first saw Maru like really seriously fight. Tsurugi's just so powerful at this point that he's just breaking out of it. Then Rika with her shadowy powers, not the 10 shadows, but she has some kind of like dimensional shadow stuff that she can do. I don't know. We kind of saw that when Rika was first introduced back when Kotsu was taking on Yuji, but out of the shadows comes the soul split katana, Maki's, you know, weapon, along with Toji had as well. And this, I guess, kind of goes into Rika's powers, although we still don't fully understand what's even going on with Rika right now and how the powers work, but I guess they do. He has the soul split katana now, and this is just way overkill Nepo power up here. He has the heavenly restriction from his genetics, he's got the Rika power up from his grandfather, and then he's got the soul split katana from his grandmother. As for Maru's just out here by himself. He's just trying his best. I mean, he does have the third eye power up, but that's just inherently a part of what he is. And yes, he is a genius as well. And he has like some of the most potential of any Rumelian ever, I guess, since he was able to make a freaking spaceship and fly it interstellarly from planet to planet. But as Tsurugi's about to like slash him, suddenly all of these big cursed spirits start coming out of Tokyo, and Maru says this is in response to them being afraid of Dborah. That could be the case, or it's just they're afraid of Yuji, or afraid of both, since they both are now showing up in Tokyo and they're both the strongest beings on planet Earth at this point. Yuji realizes this, of course, and he's like, geez, they did a pretty crappy job of guiding them. And then he goes dismantle, and like we said in the beginning, he fires off these 2 huge dismantles that are going through buildings, and once they hit these cursed spirits, it looks as if like nukes have went off. Not like modern nukes, but you know, like old nukes. Which is showing, yes, this is the strongest thing we have ever seen, aside from Dborah moving light speed and kicking Maharag, which, you know, maybe was comparable to this, but this is just Yuji casually firing off Dismantle. So yeah, Yuji is the strongest ever at this point. I think it's fair to say that. And going off of the spoilers, from what I could really roughly see at that point, it looked like Sugi was also part of like one of these explosions, like he just threw like a slash from the soul split katana. But no, both of these explosions are coming from Yuji. So I guess he hit like double dismantle or something, because in the follow-up panel here, once Maru is reacting to all of those cursed spirits dying, Sugi is still like cocked back. He hasn't thrown the slash yet. So both of these explosions were coming from Yuji. So insane. Yuji, he could just clean up the mess of everyone here if he really wanted to, but he's choosing not to because he feels that it's the best thing to do because of what Gojo told him 60 years ago. This is why I really admire All Might. All Might did put the entire country and most of the world on his back for like over 30 years, while also still fostering a new generation at the same time. All Might really is the GOAT. And he didn't even become emo. I mean, he had his moments, but he stayed vigilant and optimistic throughout everything. All Might deserved better. But anyway, after the fact, Sugi does wind up slashing Maru. He says it's too shallow, like he hasn't cut him deep enough. Maru gets his sword back, and then at the very end of the chapter, Rika's mask comes off of Sugi. Maru's like, he released the transformation, the cursed energy is fading. Then he just does the swordsman blitz thing where he very quickly slashes Maru before he's even aware of it. Maru says the binding vow to release his power made him even faster. So Sugi did some kind of binding vow with Rika as to where if he lets go of the cursed energy, then his heavenly restriction gets even more powerful or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be explained at the beginning of the next chapter, but it seems like Maru is being defeated here. And that seems likely because we are in chapter 20. So we only have about 4 or 5 chapters left at this point, since Gege said that he wanted it to be about 6 months of work or about 3 volumes worth. And I think the first volume had like 7 chapters in it. So yeah, we're at the very end of the series at this point, so I wouldn't be surprised if Maru is being defeated here. But let me know what you thought about this in the comments, guys. I'm sure a lot of what I said angered you. It's never my intention to anger the audience here. What am I supposed to say? Not say how I feel? Am I just supposed to react to the hype moments in Aura? Maybe I would be more successful if I did that. I mean, that's ultimately all that anybody wants, right? Despite me criticizing Yuji so much, I'm like acting like him. Sorry. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments, guys. If you liked the video, please like it and then subscribe, I guess. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.